Shaun Simpson, let's go back to the start of the year. We're well into the EMX 250 Championship now and only the second British Championship, so we'll touch on Doensen first. First of all, what's it been like to work with? For me, he kind of reminds me of Kaz Volk. Obviously he's Dutch, but he seems well grounded and he's got a nice family around him too. So what's it been like working with him, first and foremost?
Yeah, Guyan's been a great addition to the team. Obviously, with us being based in Belgium, in Lommel, with the team workshop, it's quite handy having Guyan quite close to us. He doesn't have his driving licence, or he didn't have it until this week, but he's still not allowed to drive on his own, still got to have someone in the car with him. But no, it's quite nice having the family, a lot of support there, practice days, race days, the family's behind him, and that makes a big difference. His mum and dad are really into it, but they kind of just let Guyan deal with the team, myself, and he's got the trainer from the Dutch Federation. So yeah, it's a nice package, but you know, Guyan would openly say himself he's been quite frustrated with the results that he's had this year. I definitely feel like he could have performed better. Last weekend in Lugo was a bit more of what I was expecting. A 7th and a 4th overall. You know, that's more of a bad day for me, or at least a normal day at the races, somewhere close to the podium. Been very up and down. A few rookie-like mistakes, unnecessary crashes, and a couple of bad starts haven't really helped us along the way. But the weather's been a big factor as well. Not easy to get good consistent results when the conditions are like that, but the cream always rises to the top, as they say, so you've got to be in it to win it, got to be there every week. And yeah, I think there's a few things we could improve on with Guyan to get him to where he needs to be, but we are making progress in the right direction.
And I mean, he's pretty much won his whole career and he's not really fighting for wins at the minute, so that must be quite frustrating for him. But at the same time, you know, he's quite young. You might look at Noel Zanock and see he's getting results, but I think Doensen's maybe 2 years younger. So I think it'll probably just take a bit of time and a bit of getting used to the class, and it's not an easy step. It's maybe the most difficult step to make in EMX anyway, going from 125 to 250.
I would say so. I certainly think that people these days are sort of blinded by the fact that your Jet Lawrences, your Jeffrey Herlings, your Ken Roxons, your Coonan brothers, that you should be winning world championships when you're 15, 16, 17. You know, that's not the norm. So, you know, at 17 years old, Guyan, I think, is in a perfect position in his career to progress, you know, in a nice fashion and get himself into a good championship position this year in EMX. Have a go at it again next year, try and be EMX champion, and then progress through the KTM family further. Where that might lead him, I'm not sure, but you know, our goal is to have riders coming through here that in 2 or 3 years' time they can go and shake their hand when they're world champion with the factory KTM team. You know, that's the ultimate goal. So, you know, on paper and in Guyan's head, in my head, and everyone's head, he probably could be doing better than he is. But I think if you actually look back at the basics, we're on track, making progression at a nice pace.
And is he on a 2-year deal with this team, or is it still to be decided?
It's still to be decided. Okay. Obviously, KTM's got a lot of things going on in the background. A lot of riders' contracts are up for renewal in the factory teams as well. So there will be a bit of shuffling around going on, but you know, I'd like to keep Guyan on for a second year in EMX 250. We'll just see how that plays out for us. Obviously, got to look at guys coming up from the 125 class as well and see where they're placed. But a little bit too early to say, but exciting times ahead for sure. And
just on Max, he hasn't had a great start this season. It was his second year in the class. Obviously it's all been hitting the head with the injury, but what was his winter like, and maybe expecting more at the start of the year? I feel like he, at Hawkstone anyway, was definitely better last year in the Honda.
Yeah, I think Max was a tough one to call, because with the second year in the class you'd expect him to be right at the front. You know, last year he was running 4th and 5th and then the odd 10th and 12th, but we really felt like with the bike and the surroundings that he could make that step up to be one of the top 3 guys in the championship. Didn't really go our way. Struggled a little bit with setup at the beginning of the year, and the results fell a little bit flat before the injury at Hawkstone Park. But we had quite a solid winter, I must admit. We've done pretty much the same as we've done with Guyan, with Josh Gilbert, Casfalk last year. Put a lot of laps in on the bike. I was there quite a bit at the time, and we tried to build with Max, you know, tried to listen to him and go go in that direction, but it didn't really seem to work out with us. So it was interesting because just before his injury at Hobson Park, we changed a few things with his programme, and we were hoping to see that progression. But we didn't get to see that, unfortunately.
And what is the latest with his injury? Do you know when you might expect him on the bike? And obviously the title's gone now, so there's probably not much point rushing. You know yourself how high the level of racing is, so probably get the 90% before he gets back racing.
Yeah, I think he's got the sling off now, and he's starting to make some gentle movements, starting some physio. So he's probably looking at another 3 weeks till he can maybe get on a bike. That'll be quite easy going to start with, a couple of weeks, and then maybe about a month after that of full training before we can see him back. So it's going to be a couple of months yet, I think. So it takes us to around Finland time, somewhere like that. We could expect him to be making a return, but as you say, no rush. Championship's gone. Let's get him back to as near 100% fitness and bike condition as we can, and come back and really try and show people what we've done with Max and what Max can do towards the end of the season.
And Oriol Olivier, you've had the opportunity to draft him under the awning. Just how did that all come about? Obviously he was with a team and he had to leave it due to financial reasons, but I think Diego Clermont was maybe involved. Can you just walk me through how the opportunity came to get him underneath this awning?
It was very strange how it all come about, because Oriol's manager had sent Diego from KTM a message saying that Oriol was looking for a ride, and it was actually Simon Gabriel, my boss, that approached Diego and said, you know, what do you want to do, because Max is injured, we would like to replace him, we want 2 guys under the awning. And there was no one springing to mind in the EMX 250 class that didn't already have a ride. So Diego had just said, you wouldn't be interested in running Oriol, and Simon said straight away, yeah, why not? Obviously Oriol's too old for the EMX 250 class, and he's actually in his final year in the MX2 class, so we were motivated to give him a go. It's not someone I knew more than just seeing on the track, but he's a brilliant guy to work with, very switched on with regard to bike setup and what he likes and what he doesn't like, so easy to work with, and he's serious about his racing. He's really dedicated. Even today he's riding in Spain to keep his Spanish championship title hopes alive, and then he'll fly in tonight and race here for his first ever British Championship at Canada Heights. And our goal is to, obviously we've announced we're keeping him till the end of the year. We'd like to see Oriol complete the Spanish Championship, win his home championship. With 7 rounds of the British Championship to go, we'd like to see him being in the hunt for the title at the end of the year with that. Potential British Championship there. And we'd like to push him as close as we can and to finish top 10 in the World Championship in MX2.
And I would like to ask you about the budgets, because obviously a lot of the time that's done before the start of the season, and you guys had only planned to do EMX 250. Now there's obviously a few races that won't have those, and you guys will be going. Germany, I think, was one, and Lommel's going to be one. So in terms of the budget, was that something you needed to discuss, or was it all straightforward? I assume you will go to the awning, the full truck, to the MX2 rounds, just with him for those rounds?
Of course. You know, I think when you're doing a budget at the beginning of the year, you've got to have a bit in mind that you're going to go over budget or unforeseen things in the budget. You know, Teutschenthal's not that far from the workshop. You're only talking about a 6-hour drive. Lockett and Lommel as well, another 2 that are not on the EMX 250 calendar. Again, not that far away, within 7 or 8 hours driving. So it's just a case of, you know, loading the truck up and doing an extra weekend at the racetrack. Ian will wildcard in the MX2 at Lommel as well. So that'll be interesting to see how he fares there. But yeah, there is a bit of, you know, unforeseen changes in the budget, but right now we plan to run 2 riders. We are running 2 riders. Those changes will come into force when you see us with 3 riders under the awning for the remaining rounds of the championship, however many that might be.
And Oriol, he's very smooth. I really like his style. He's very technical. How have you found that working with him, and has he surprised you in any way? Because like you said, I don't think you really spoke to him before he got this ride, so what's he been like to work with too? Seems like a really nice guy, and he's fast, so that's always good.
He's so easygoing, as I say, really into his racing, and he's the type of guy you watch and you think, wow, that's, you know, he's going to be quite a bit off here, and he's right up there. He really looks like he's got another 2 or 3 seconds a lap in the tank, but he's very efficient on the bike. He's quite a wee lad, so he rides the bike nice. Doesn't really abuse the clutch, he uses the engine well, and he rides it nice, gets the most out of the engine and the suspension. So, like I said, he's not too fussy, but he does know what he wants, especially the direction he wants to go. So that's been, you know, really a dream to work with a guy like that. You know, just because it's so easy going. But you know, we're not just one for sitting back and thinking, okay, he's happy. We've still got a few things we want to try with him and improve, because, you know, as you said, the MX2 is such a tightly contested class that, you know, we're looking for the last few tenths on the track. So we've got some suspension upgrades for him either this weekend or next weekend, and we'll just work with him to see if we can get him as comfortable as he can. But you know, he's rode KTM for a few years and he really rates our bike, the engine, suspension and everything we're doing around the races. So, you know, happy camp's a fast camp, and you know, I'm very much of the opinion that if we can keep the atmosphere here with the crew and the riders, keep it serious but fun at the same time, then the boys can go out on track with a free head and really, you know, get the job done on track when it's time to go racing. And
it's quite funny because, you know, coming into this season, all the focus was on the MX250. You probably weren't even really thinking of MX2. Now all of a sudden you're seeing him in MX2, and I mean, you probably have a goal. You'd like to see him. It's not going to be easy, but you'd maybe like to see him on the podium. So it's quite switched the focus. And just on Oriol, I feel like he's so smooth and technical, but he does have a few crashes here or there, but they're never that big. They're just small tip overs, maybe a concentration thing, similar to Fevre in that way. He seems to have a lot of tip overs too.
Yeah, I mean, Guyan as well. There's been a few unforced errors that I, you know, definitely don't like to see. You know, if it's unavoidable or you're really pushing hard and you have a crash, then I can accept it. The small tip overs, the small front ends washing out, or silly mistakes, the wrong line choice, it's all part of learning. You know, you've got to remember that Oriol's 23, you know, old enough for the class and experienced enough to know better. But on the flip side, Guyan's only 17, so you've got to expect some of those. You know, your Roxons and Herlings, they're once every 10, 15 years you see those guys. So you've got to cut the guys a bit of slack, and I know what it was like to be a rider. You know, sometimes it just, you are very concentrated and something happens. So, you know, it's from the outside it's frustrating sometimes to watch, but you know, it's motocross at the end of the day and things can happen. So you just got to try and keep those mistakes to a minimum, and you know, gather as many points as you can and see where you end up.
And young Angus, what's it like being a father to him, and has he got on a bike yet? Does he love it? Maybe a future GP rider in many years to come, who knows? But first and foremost, is he enjoy? He does ride, doesn't he?
I bought him golf clubs.
Oh right, golf.
Likes that.
Oh no, not golf.
Racket.
Tennis.
He's got football, rugby ball. We go swimming. He's got a BMX,
right.
And he does have a motocross bike.
So he loves sport, a bit like myself.
Yeah, do you know what? I've always said to my wife, I don't know how my parents done it. You know, 10, 15 years my dad was a professional, and sort of 10 years off, and then back on the road with me for 20 years. I would like to avoid it if possible, but I've always said to my wife, and she agrees, Rachel, you know, give the kids the opportunity to be a kid, to enjoy what they want to do. Grab the football one day, the golf clubs the next, the motocross bike the next day. You know, just this week he was at me, Dad, I want to go out on my bike, I want to go out on my bike. So we went out on the bike, and you know, as long as they're having fun at that age, once they get a bit older and he wants to choose to do golf, tennis, be a scientist or a doctor, I really don't mind. As long as they're happy, they can earn a crust, and yeah, I'll not be pushing them into doing motocross at all. But if the time does come that I need to be spinning spanners or at the track with my welly boots on, then you know, that may have to just happen.
Perfect, thank you Shaun, appreciate your time.